Hello, government class. Good to see you back here in the classroom today, and we're getting ready to start lesson 7, dealing with the judicial branch. The last time we talked about some terms of the court. We're going to get to a few more at the end of the lesson today, but right now we're going to go into our discussion about the people of the court. And I hope you had a chance to watch those 2 videos dealing with different aspects of the court to give you a visualization of that. Also, next week you'll be watching a video about jury duty and what all that entails. And it's one of our rights and one of our responsibilities as being a good citizen is being willing to serve on a jury so that we can fulfill the constitutional rights of others to have a trial by jury. So let's talk about the people of the court. Now, the first thing that we're going to talk about here is not necessarily a person, but a symbol. And it's incredibly important. So if you look up at this picture, you're going to see the seal that represents the authority that is in that court. So this is the seal of the United States of America, and it's the seal of authority, which law is in authority in that courtroom. Because in the United States of America, you can be in a city court, you can be in a state, or you can be in a federal. And so one of the things that you have to understand, the highest law within that courtroom is represented by what's up on that wall. So it's not the judge. The judge is only as powerful as the law will allow him. He is under that law. So I think it's very fitting that right above the judge where he's sitting is a representation of the law that he is to uphold and he is to administer faithfully. So that's the first thing that you want to look for in a courtroom is that symbol, because that's the symbol of authority. Kind of reminds me a little bit of the Romans, and they always carried their seal, their symbol of authority, their symbol of power, which was the fasces, and we've discussed that in our world history classes. Next person is the judge, and so what we're going to do is give you a little bit of a job description for each one of these positions, but the judge is the representative of the law. Okay, he is only as powerful as what the law will allow him to do. And he must make sure his chief responsibility is to make sure the law is upheld. And a lot of people think, no, his chief responsibility is pass sentence. No. His chief responsibility is to make sure the law is upheld and proper procedure is followed. Okay? And so that's incredibly important so that you receive a fair trial. All right? So that's the judge. The next one is just underneath the judge. And every courtroom has this. And actually there could be more than one, but it's called the clerk. And then you have a deputy clerk, and you have several people that sit basically underneath the office of the clerk. The clerk is appointed to have custody of the seal of the court, which is the what? The authority of the court, okay? And to keep records of all court proceedings and to make sure the rules of order are followed. So that's the responsibility of the clerk, and that's why they have several other people that are under them, because they have to maintain that all the documents of the court are properly handled. Otherwise, it could be thrown out as a mistrial. Okay, so the clerk is extremely important in the proper procedures of the courtroom. The next one is the bailiffs. Okay, they are officers of the court who are responsible for prisoners during a trial and who guard the juries of the court. And you've all seen the bailiff when the judge gets ready to come in. He calls everybody to rise. He introduces the judge. The judge comes back in. Everybody sits down. And so the bailiff also brings in the prisoners, takes the prisoners out, the ones that are standing trial on those particular days. And he also is responsible to guard the jurors. So his office guards the jurors and makes sure that they're protected and their privacy is upheld, because they're supposed to be able to debate the findings in the court, the evidence that was presented, in privacy. So that's one of the things that the bailiff is responsible to do. And then in district courts, you have a marshal. In county, state court, sometimes you have a sheriff or the sheriff's department. Okay, and this officer is appointed in each district court to keep order in the court. So if there's any problems, the sheriff or the marshal takes over and carry out court orders. If there is a summons or a subpoena, the marshal or the sheriff's department will take care of that. And to perform the duties of a sheriff. So they have arrest powers, they have jurisdiction in that area, okay? And so they maintain order in the courtroom. A lot of people think the bailiff does, but the bailiff has his hands full with the jury and the prisoners, okay? And so this person maintains the rest of the courtroom. All right? And making sure that witnesses are brought in and witnesses are allowed to leave safely out of the courtroom. Here's another little bird's eye view, okay, of a courtroom. And some of the things that you see there, and some of these people we've already talked about, okay? But one of the things I want you to understand is the plaintiff or the prosecutor always sits on the right side, okay? So the right side, which would be the left of the judge. And that way, anytime you go into a courtroom, the judge always knows who's on what side, okay? So that's the plaintiff or the prosecutor. So those are the ones that are bringing suit, bringing charge against the defendant. So, oops, wrong way, okay? All right, so then the defendant sits on the left, okay? So that way you know. Defendant who wishes to defend themselves, okay? So you don't have to have a lawyer if you're going to defend yourselves, but it's called pro se representation, which means in absence of a lawyer, all right? So if you do pro se representation, that means you're going to defend yourself in the court of law. You also see there the court reporter. The court reporter is the one who takes all the notes, because every word that's said in a courtroom is taken down and kept on official record, okay? Also in this, witnesses. You see the witness stand. The bailiff has the responsibility of swearing in the witness and making sure the witness is going to tell their truth. Okay, the sheriff is the one who basically brings them up through that beginning section, but once they enter the court area, the main area of the courtroom, then the bailiff takes over. So the witnesses can be called from the back, but if they're a high-profile witness, someone that needs protection, they'll bring them in from the side from a special chamber. Okay? And then we get to the 6 to 12 jurors. Some courts will have 6, but usually it's around 12 with about 6, 7 alternates. Jurors with alternate 4-person is the main spokesperson. The 4-person is like the foreman of the jury and runs the jury meetings. And the judge actually appoints who that person is going to be in agreement with the lawyers. All right? Now, let's talk about the jury. Okay? A body of civilians, 6 to 12, sworn to give a verdict. Sworn to give a verdict. All right? They decide if they're guilty, liable, that type of thing. All right? And they only decide based on the evidence that's presented in court. Not with the news. They're not supposed to read about it. They're not supposed to talk about it outside of it. They're only supposed to deal with the evidence that is presented in court. All right? And members of the jury must be 18. So those of you that are 18 now could get a summons or could get an official notice that you are to serve jury duty. How do they know about you? Well, also you have to be a U.S. citizen. But how do they know about you? If you get your driver's license, okay? Or if you register to vote, then you're in the system, okay? So you could be called anytime. Being that you're 18, you have a driver's license, you're 18, and you've registered to vote, which all of you, as good American citizens, will register to vote, all right? Members of the jury must live in the district that they are serving. So in other words, you won't be called to serve in a jury in Honolulu. You don't live in that area, okay? But you can be called to serve on any of the courtrooms here on the island, all right? But they do have some ways that you can get out. If you're more than, I think it's 70 miles away from the courtroom, you can get out of jury duty. And there's some other reasons there too, all right? But you must live in the district, because remember, you're supposed to be able to be tried by a jury of your peers, which is your neighbors, all right? Members of the jury must consist of a broad spectrum of people within the community. So they don't pick all these conservative Republicans or all these liberal, Democrats to serve on just one. It has to be a broad spectrum. So you're going to have liberals and moderates and conservatives and all different races, mixture of gender, male and female. So there's going to be this broad business people, construction people, education people. So they try to get this broad spectrum so that they can have a balance on the jury. The jury determines guilt or innocence. Okay, so in a criminal trial, guilt or innocence. Judge does the sentencing. So based on the maximums, and we talked about this when we were dealing with Congress, for every law that is passed, there's a minimum penalty and a maximum penalty. And it can be jail sentence and it can be fines. And so the judge has that parameter to work with, minimum and maximum. So that's the only judge's the judge's only opportunity to basically get his 2 cents in, all right, about the guilt of the person. And that's based on the evidence that's presented as well. But the jury determines if they're guilty. So judge cannot come back and say, no, this person's guilty and they're going to serve this sentence even though you said he was innocent. No, he can't do that. Once the jury says innocent or guilty, the judge has to take it from there. You can't change that decision. All right? So in understand in different cases, because we have civil cases and criminal cases, they pass a verdict of liable or not liable, okay? In a civil case, guilty, not guilty in a criminal case. All right? Then verdicts, okay? So the verdict is the decision of the jury. So do you have a verdict? You know, you've seen those in the different courts. So in federal courts, one of the things that you have to understand, when the jury comes out, there's 12 people in the jury, all right? When the jury comes out in a federal court, it has to be unanimous. Because I've often wondered in TV shows when, you know, they come out and say, what's your verdict? And say guilty or not guilty. Is that a unanimous vote or is that simple majority? So state and local courts can do decisions made by unanimous or simple majority. They can say this has to be unanimous because of the seriousness of the case. All right, but federal courts are always unanimous. So if someone votes against, there's acquittal. All right? If they cannot get the votes needed for one side or another, it is called a hung jury. So they can't get a unanimous vote, or they can't get a majority on either side. All right, it's called a hung jury. So what does the judge do about that? The jury can ask for more information. So they can go back and say, you know, we can't make our decision. We need the prosecutor to present this. We need a defense to present this. So they can ask for more information, or the judge can just determine a mistrial. Okay? Now, one of the things that's fascinating about this is that a defendant can be tried again in a mistrial for the same crime. So if it's a mistrial, they can be tried again. Or they can let the trial go, or they can do some kind of plea bargain. But if a defendant is found innocent of a crime, okay, they get the information they need, they go back to trial, and the jury comes back, and the verdict is not guilty, okay? And then a little bit later on, more information is found out about this. They cannot take the person back to trial for that same crime. They've already been tried in a criminal case, found innocent. They cannot be brought back in and tried in a criminal again for the same crime. That's called double jeopardy. Okay? So you need to understand that. So in the case of O.J. Simpson, all right, O.J. Simpson went through the criminal trial, and the Kardashian fellow got him off of the criminal trial because of some discrepancies. Well, the family of his wife that he killed, the family came back and brought civil suit against him. And they brought out the information that was needed, and in that information, they found him guilty. Now, everybody's like, well, wait a minute. That's double jeopardy. No, it's not. Because in one instance, it was a criminal. In the other one, it was a civil. So 2 different courts, 2 different rules of law. All right? So that's why that wasn't considered double jeopardy, if you were wondering about that, because you followed the O.J. Simpson trial. All right? Now, we got a few more terms, and then we'll be done for today. Bail. Okay, the release of a person from legal custody by a written agreement and secured by a bond. So you know how they offer bail. So this person can get out on bail. So they're released from the custody, but someone comes in and gives a deposit, a bond. A bondsman comes in and says, I will put the $5 million down for their bail. I will be responsible to make sure they get back to trial. If they run or anything like that, that bail money is forfeited. Okay? So bail is what they put out there to release that person to guarantee that they'll be back to trial. All right? And then also direct examination. Okay, these are a couple more terms. Direct examination is if I call a witness, I'm the prosecutor and I call a witness. The first time that witness, all right, is questioned is called direct. And then the cross-examination is by the defendant. So as prosecutor, I do direct because I called the witness. The cross-examination is the person who did not call the witness gets to cross-examine. Okay? So those are two terms there that you hear often in court. Another one is perjury. All right, and this is very important. Perjury is when you lie under oath, simply. You get up, you swear that you will tell the truth, all the truth, so help you God, and then you lie, and then later on it comes out that you lied. Perjury. Perjury can be a fine, or it can be actually a jail sentence. Okay? Acquittal. Acquittal is a judgment that a person is not guilty. So if you get acquitted, or you receive a verdict of acquittal, that means you are found not guilty. And that means you're free if you're acquitted. Okay? And then the other part of that is called exoneration, or you were exonerated, the action of officially absolving someone from blame. So you will hear these terms interchanged. They were acquitted, they were exonerated. Either way, it just means they were able to go free. Okay? And so these are the last terms. What we're going to get to tomorrow in our lecture. The next lecture deals with the different courts in the federal court system. So we still have to do the federal court system and the state court system, so you know how those hierarchy of powers work. All right? Thank you for paying attention. Remember, if you need to stop this along the way so that you can write these definitions down, you'll need these for the end of the week quiz. All right? Lord bless you. We'll see you tomorrow.